Hello, you're watching Fairfield Public Access TV. My name is Connie Boyer, and I'm here with Susan Kessel and Verda Baird for Opening Doors of Fairfield, and today's show is about genealogy. And Verda, can you please tell us what your title is?
Well, I'm the corresponding secretary for the Genealogical Society here in Fairfield. There are 91 chapters in Iowa. Out of the 99 counties, there's 91 chapters, and they all have someone like me in their own little county that answers letters. And I'm currently, today I brought along a letter. It's my 2,654th person I've answered now in 22 years.
Wow.
And it just, but every person writes at least 3 or 4 times. It just goes on and on. They always think of one more little thing they want.
Well, we thought this would be a great show for opening a door to our past, along with our mission statement of opening the doors into the lives of the people and places in our Fairfield community. We strive to promote awareness, understanding, and appreciation for one another. And we'd also like to thank
Whitney Monument Works for their sponsorship today of this show. So thank you, Kent and Rhonda. And they have a 5-generation history in Fairfield, correct?
And how appropriate for them to be sponsoring this show.
Right.
Great. So another question I have is this a volunteer position? How did you get into this? Or do they pay you big bucks for this?
No, I guess you'd say I'm self-employed. Even though I'm corresponding secretary, I will not do it free. I'm 9 miles out in the country, and I've always, the first 12 years I survived on just a donation, please. And then it got to the point where
Probably spending a lot of money.
well,
copies
and so I really wasn't, I thought, getting enough to make it worthwhile, and so I turned it over to somebody else for several years, and when I did that, we set a fee that we both would research for the same amount. Currently, I charge $8 an hour, which is so much cheaper, I think, than even the surrounding counties. I know Oskaloosa, they won't answer a letter unless they get $25.
Wow.
But then again, their collection, like ours, it's in the mall over there in Penn Central Mall, and they have to rent space. Where, see, here we are, we're just open to the public, and anybody comes in can just use it very freely.
So if someone wants to correspond with you, where do they mail the correspondence? Here to the library?
I get letters at the library, the Chamber of Commerce. Some churches will have something that they can't answer. I get
through the newspaper?
The newspaper will send me some, especially if people want obituaries. You know, they don't look them up. I look them up on microfilm, because all the newspapers are microfilm back to 1847. Now, I said 1847. That's,
wow.
And
that's all available here at the library.
Yes,
is that correct?
Yes, right over there in the microfilm drawer.
Okay. And we'll go over there after a bit and show you what that looks like.
How long have you been doing this?
Oh, well, since 1976, our corresponding secretary in the Genealogy Society moved to Texas. And at the time, I was the president, and so I just filled in the rest of the year. And then my 2 years was up as president of the local group, and so next year then I was the corresponding secretary, and it just goes on and on. Yeah. Research has changed so with the internet. Everything I look up now, I'm either looking up somebody's obituary back maybe 100 years ago. They can't get that off the internet.
Right.
And I'm looking up probates and wills and divorces. Divorces go back to 1839 in this county.
Now, how did you get started?
Oh, how did I get started?
You said you weren't from here, but I bet you know more about
I joined the Genealogy Society.
And how many people belong to that? Now, this is a Jefferson County group, so how many people belong to that?
The first year we were organized in 1973, there were 52. And the present, I think there's 26. So it's about half. And
Now-
we've spent many, many hours in the courthouse in years past copying records for these red books up here. Those red books are courthouse records that have been reproduced and typed
All
for
by
the shelves.
this organization, or you.
Well, I think I typed all but 3 of them, these red ones. The green ones I typed, and the two gold ones you see behind me, those, one of them is just Evergreen Cemetery, and the other one has all the other 77 cemeteries in it. It's a general index to all these blue books you see right behind me. They are the ones, that whole row, that's the row that Mrs. Prill and her husband Orville did. And this is where they walked the cemeteries and recorded them in the order in which they are in the cemetery. But then
Oh my goodness.
the index, of course, is alphabetical.
Which we are excited. We will be doing a show at a cemetery later on. We just think that's going to be so interesting. We better just do that in a whole show for itself.
Well, I think it's interesting that so many people, or several people, have had a huge hand in putting all this together. I mean, the rest of us are completely oblivious to all this going on. Now, I was telling Verda just
We work behind the scenes.
before we got here. In fact, my father was just over 2 weekends ago, and we went through the Keller side of my family, which is my grandmother's side, and there was Verda's name on one of the documents as researcher, or I think it said researcher. And, you know, I've never had a big interest in genealogy, but both sides of my father's family has been done, and it is quite fascinating if you can get into some of the stories of these individuals and then visit some of these surrounding cemeteries. For example, out at, I want to say Abingdon, or out that direction,
Well, I
there's
just
an old
can't
cemetery where a
believe
lot of the
there's
Harrisons
77.
buried. So it's quite interesting. So let's maybe take a walk back and say, okay, if I wanted to start from scratch, I had no idea where to start. You know, what would I do first?
You
Start with your immediate family and then
Yes,
start working
and
backwards?
Work back and get all you can from your ancestors, houses, you know, grandma and grandpa's things, and then just branch out. You'd be surprised at all the things that someone has tucked away. It may not be your own parents, it may be great aunts and uncles, and especially the old fat family Bibles. You know, they're like 3 inches thick, and they have lots of data in them. And,
Now, you sent me a form which you can pick up here at the library to get you started. And,
yes, that's
which one is that?
that's this white one called an ancestor chart. It shows 5 generations, starting with yourself and your names of your parents, grandparents, great-grandparents, and the great-greats. Pretty soon you're working with 31 different names.
Now, myself, it seems like my family on my mother's side, I'm not even sure I know my grandparents'
Names.
name. If I thought hard, I would get them, but I didn't know them. They died when my mother was young in Indiana. So could I research that here? Would I have to write back there?
You'd be surprised what you can find now on the internet.
On the internet.
Jefferson County is on the internet. We're under Iowa Gen Web, IAGENWEB. There's a United States Gen Web. Of course, Indiana would have an Indiana Gen Web site. In fact, probably something that is on our genealogy site here is the pictures of all the townships with all the cemeteries.
Who's
where
done
they-
this?
You're looking at her.
You've done this? The web page thing?
No, I didn't do the web page. I did the maps that's on the web page.
Okay.
Our web page coordinator just moved to Minneapolis, and she's just recently turned it over to Bill Rathbun,
Okay.
and he's going to be our new coordinator. But out of these, something is just surprising now, what you can find. People in Oregon about a month ago were interested in Jefferson County. They knew their ancestors. The Congers had to be buried here, and they found out that they were, but they were coming and they didn't contact me. Where's that cemetery? They saw the map on the web page. On a dead-end gravel road south of Batavia. It's called the County Line Cemetery. Sometimes it's called Gaunterman or Rominger or Rominger. They drove all the way from Oregon right to that cemetery without contacting anybody. They found it on the internet.
That's incredible.
And
That is incredible. Now, and I don't know if you've heard of this, but I just recently heard that the Mormons did a huge thing about genealogy. Are you familiar with that? That covers thousands and thousands
They have over
of people?
2 million rolls of microfilm. They microfilmed our county in October 1974.
Oh, that long ago.
That long ago. It's been 25 years in October.
I think their latest is getting on the internet, though, with their availability.
But a lot of people don't realize that we have a branch library right out here in our brand new Latter-day Saints Church, right here south of Highway 34, what, 3-4
right.
blocks.
I didn't know that.
And they're open Mondays and Thursdays, and I really can't tell you the hours right now, but they are most helpful. If there's something in their huge computer system that they'll print it out for 5 cents a page. It's
Now, and that doesn't have to do with just people that were Mormon, is that correct? I mean,
Right,
it's
anybody.
it's anybody and everybody. Okay.
because you could submit anything to the Mormons, and you don't have to be a Latter-day Saint to have it recorded in their files.
Well, it's really incredible that they've taken on that big of a project.
That is.
Well, when they were here in microfilm, there were only 44 family books. These 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. These are all family books. There were 44 of them when they microfilmed. We now have collected 212.
Now, when you say family books, what does that mean?
Well, there's one here on the Kellers, just like.
So this is somebody's researched and they
really
put
worked.
the documentation together.
Yes, and these are all Jefferson County families.
I see a Samuelson there, which would be my husband's family.
And usually all I do is ask if they have anything they'd like to share for our shelves. It's people that that have lived away from here that do these. It isn't the ones that are living here now. Very few of them have been donated by residents here. It's people away from here that wanted to preserve it back here.
So, Connie, you're looking at this book. What are you finding in there? This is the family of...
This is the family of Gustav and Magdalene Keller, which is some great of mine. I don't know which great.
It'd probably be back 5 generations at least.
Could be. And I believe that this Gustav was the first Keller to move to Jefferson County, as I'm remembering here what my father told me. And this is his passport from France, I believe.
Yes, they were from Belfort.
And I guess I can't see the date.
Oh, they
Can't find
came
it.
in 1845, I think, about. Turn one page. No, I guess I typed up what this actually says. Someone transcribed it for me.
Yeah. But at any rate, as we go through here, deed record lands.
This is an original land patent when he
Okay.
bought land for $1.25 an acre.
Oh wow, what a deal. Can't get that anymore. Pictures of Spirits Bottle. Now they had a bottling
In
something
St. Louis.
here. It was in St. Louis.
St. Louis. because they didn't come directly.
Okay.
I think
So my family, the Bateses,
they were here early too.
ran the Bates Motel. Would any information about that be appropriate to catalog in the book under Bates? I see
Well,
like the bottle company there.
there's no two books here on the shelves alike. Some of them have great stories and pictures. Some of them just have names and dates, and that's
It's
it.
however they chose to put together that book.
And I know that I'm in here somewhere, I just don't know where. And what I thought was interesting too is you find people's names in here that you go, I didn't know I was related to them.
Right.
You know, that's what's kind of fascinating too, is, you know, your Shertel relation all of a sudden is in here. Like I see some Reeds in here and Rubies and, you know, people that are around today that you had no clue that you had some kind of connection with. So anyway, this is totally fascinating.
So
And this book had been published by the Cheesham's daughter.
can
Yeah.
these be checked out, or do you have to look at them here?
Since the new library's open, they are no longer checked out.
Okay.
They used to be up on the, people didn't even know they existed. They were up on the balcony. They come in to research genealogy in the old library, and these were up on the balcony, and well, nobody knew they were up there really. And so now they're in.
So we're right here in the middle of the new library. Great area right out here in front of everyone. Nice tables and comfortable chairs around and lighting.
And 2 copiers at 10 cents a page.
Air conditioned. It's wonderful in here. So
But how do we keep adding to this? Obviously, this had a stopping point when they stopped, and you know, I'm in here, but I don't think my children are in here. So can we continue to add to these books as they are, or how do we do that?
I honestly can't tell you.
That's for the next generation to figure out.
I don't know if she's updating it every year at the Keller reunion. Do you ever go to a Keller reunion?
No. Never have been.
I think some of the younger generation has lost that type of family contact, that gathering. But I do think we're kind of coming around again. Like when we came here today, you had some people that had driven up here from
Unionville, Missouri.
using the microfilm to look up things.
And it's the fastest growing hobby, I think.
Really.
Don't you think people buy a computer and then they don't know what to do with it after they got it?
Yes.
You know, they can put their recipes, the women can put their recipes and their address, you know, on it, all their Christmas addresses, and
So this is
then
something they're doing with computers.
I think so. It's a booming thing.
So what other information do we have behind us here, besides the family books and these courthouse records?
Well, let's tell first what all the courthouse records are.
Oh, okay.
Our county was created in 1839, and we've copied the index to the divorces from 1839 to 1939. We've copied marriages 1839 to 1949. Birth records in Iowa didn't start, and death records didn't start until July 1880, and we've copied births from 1880 through 1919. We really haven't copied any after that because the Code of Iowa with the 65-year privacy law. We really can't copy them and put them in a bound book. And the death
a little
piece
piece
records
of
we've copied
information
up through from 1880 to 1939. We've got, then we have the probate index. We've copied the index up to 1961. And, oh, my mind's just a blank.
So, do you think that this Privacy Act that you said was enacted,
Oh, that's an old law, I think, the 65-year privacy law.
okay, Is that hiding anything? I mean, are there
No,
things that are,
okay, I think in this day and age, there's somebody trying to get an illegitimate birth certificate or something like that, maybe. And they walk in and they find out that someone is deceased. Let's say this little child died when it was 5. Well, there maybe, there's just so many things like that going on.
oh,
that,
I'm sure.
So they would try and call themselves that person, and then there's the names of the parents, and
So they would be using records for
Right.
unethical situations
right.
and illegal activities and impersonations, that types of things.
And
So that's why they've put the Privacy Act on.
That's how so many people are alias someone else. I don't know.
This is such an interesting thing.
So then every year you can go get that next year. Is that correct?
We just haven't. We just stopped with 1920 and have left it at that.
I see.
Because we usually try and do like 20 years at a time. So that'd take us up, like to 1940. You see what I mean? From 20 to 40, and then there you are, you're lapping into, it'll be a while before we
So
get
how long does it take you to go to the courthouse and do 20 years worth of stuff? How many hours are we talking?
20
Or how many
years.
months?
There's been many volunteer hours put in by members of our group in years past. We did them on 3 by 5 cards and then turn around and alphabetize them and type them into books that way. And I remember the day we had all the probate names, and we turned around and we copied them just on long lists. We turned around and cut them apart like 1/2 inch, and everybody that could help. We were down in the community room downstairs in the First National Bank, and everybody took a part of the alphabet, and you took all your little pieces of paper and you alphabetized all your letter C or whatever. It was
what a project.
quite a challenge.
What a project.
And
So if somebody wants to belong to the Genealogical Society, we have trouble saying that word.
we meet.
I mean,
we meet
when do you meet and how do you belong?
We meet the 4th Tuesday. We don't meet every month now anymore. We don't meet in July or August, and we don't meet in December or January. But we meet at the First National Bank, and dues are $5 a year, and it's
What do you
Just
talk
come.
about? Just you do things for
Oh.
a community. As
it seems like it's hard to get speakers after being organized for 26 years. And so a lot of us tell what we've been doing the last year, what good luck we've had. Last time we had a show and tell, and
I bet you get lots of interesting stories from people writing you, don't you? Like these people from Missouri up here today, that's incredible. And the
This-
people from Oregon.
this one lady that I wrote in March, she says, I hope you answer real soon because my husband and I will be manning a fire lookout tower in the mountains for the summer, and we won't see anybody but each other all summer long.
so they need something to talk about.
But and the thing that she wanted the copy of that little history booklet the Pleasant Plain people put together for the 1976 bicentennial. She'd never seen one, and I sent her some pages out of it so that she could see what it looked like, and so I Xeroxed the whole thing for her. So that's something she had in time to take up to the tower with her. But everybody has such, I guess, fascinating just lives they're leading now.
Yes. And now, in the ledger, I do notice that sometimes you have things in there, maybe a compilation of questions that people have written you, and they'll say, do you know where so-and-so was buried, or do you, just all kinds of
Are any of
questions.
my relatives still living there?
And so then do you get responses from people that have read this in the paper?
Oh, sometimes somebody in town will call and say, hey, I can help them. And I say, well, you write to them,
Okay.
Just don't, just go ahead and do it. don't hesitate.
Right. So they
And-
get what they're looking for.
But most of my letters are from people that had ancestors that lived here until maybe the 1860s or 70s and went west. A lot of them went early. I mean, in the 1850s, they went ahead and went to California or Oregon. Oh, I'll have to tell you about the first letter I ever wrote. I don't remember the last name anymore. She was buried out in Abington Cemetery. This lady from California, unknowing what she was going to run into, wrote and asked for a copy of this Rebecca's obituary. And she had been murdered by her husband in the kitchen with a hatchet out around Abington at her farm home. And that was the first kind of
Skeletons in the closet here.
That's the first letter I had. And do you know,
Is this a movie now?
about 5 years ago, lo and behold, I walk in here, and if it wasn't Nancy, it's the first time she'd ever been to Iowa, and we got to meet. You know, I don't meet many of these people I write to at all.
So do you come here every day then and do research?
No, I try to hold it to twice a week.
Okay. Okay.
Well, that's how I
It sounds
found
like a
out
full-time
about
job
her
here.
a few years ago when I was doing an article for the Fact Theater. We were redoing South Pacific. I thought, well, let's come to the library and look at the old newspaper, get the information for the, it was during Parsons Days 30 years ago. And I saw you here working, and I got so caught up in looking at these old newspapers that my whole afternoon was wasted here.
Oh, you
Not
read the
wasted.
ads.
I just, all the stories and remembering things was wonderful. So maybe this is a good time to take a break and move our camera and see what you can look at here at the library.
I think that's a great idea.
We're here in the middle of the genealogical section of the library, and it's a giant file here. And what's in here?
There are over 4,000 family sheets in 3 drawers, A through H, and then the next one is through letter R, and then the bottom one through the letter Z. And these are all things that have been shared by someone else that's been working on their ancestors in the past 23 years. These files were in my home as long as we were in the old library. And then when we opened this library, why, I brought them in.
I bet you're glad to get rid of those.
Oh, but I miss them. You'd be
What a
surprised.
responsibility.
You'd be surprised that I could answer people on the phone
Oh,
if they'd call
sure.
long distance. And
Sure.
I guess, well, I advertise in a national magazine as a researcher. That's where some of my phone calls come from.
Okay.
I pulled out Bates just to see what was here in the Bates family, and I told her I believe her early Bates is probably Joel, who died here in 1861 and is buried out in Pattison Cemetery, which that's the same cemetery that your Kellers are in.
I think it's the Harrisons, actually.
The Harrisons?
Yeah, Abington, that
Oh.
way.
No, the Kellers are down in Pattison,
Well, okay.
southeast.
Okay, that makes
Yeah,
sense.
yeah.
Okay.
Okay.
We're not on the
So-
same page, right?
Yeah, but
Exactly.
there's no two forms alike. Everybody uses a different family form that shows father and mother and all the children. And
No skeletons in there for Susan?
I don't think
Oh.
we dug quite deep
we
enough.
didn't.
That's
But
okay.
hopefully this would be the early ancestor that you might be researching. He was born in 1791, it said, in New York.
In New York.
So he probably wasn't the first one in the country then.
Okay.
You've got
Since
another
he was born here.
So
Well, this is fascinating. This might open up another new
something that you
area.
might wonder, it's on the other side. This is a back-to-back file cabinet. The top drawer has church records, mostly church histories.
Okay.
And did you want me to maybe open that drawer.
Let's come around this way since
Alrighty.
we're all wired up. And church records. Now, what would these be used for? This would be...
Oh, people write and wonder, well, when was that church organized or something?
Okay.
And so there's folders here. All right, I'll pick this one out. This is churches, and these are all the Baptist churches that have been in the county since 1839. And there's a little note what year it opened and what year it closed, whether there's anything, a little history book in the file on that church. And
did the churches put this together, or again, did individuals put this together for their church?
This was in the old library, and it was in kind of a scrambled mess, maybe.
Scrambled.
And see, like here's the First Baptist Church now, and they put out a little history booklet when that's 135 years.
So now they have a new building since then.
And these are all, mostly little historical booklets. Well,
I guess that's something for the churches now to say, if you do something to the building or you have changes or history that you want to add, to bring it to the library and put it in the file.
definitely, because some of them have nothing. I won't say which ones, but some of them have nothing in this drawer. And maybe they aren't even aware that there's a place for it.
Mm-hmm.
Did we want to look at the microfilm now?
Yes, we do.
All righty.
Can we walk over there together?
We all have wires, but we'll get over
wait a sec.
here. Now,
Do I need to take this?
this
This is our microfilm cabinet. And
oh my.
we'll start first with the top drawer. This is all these marked with red are Jefferson County. See, we started in 1850, 56, 60, 70, 80. We have census records up through 1925. And they're all things that can be put on the reader and just read them. These 5 are obituaries, mostly of people buried in Evergreen Cemetery. Evergreen was the book that Mrs. Prill never got done. She didn't get it, didn't get it typed or anything. And
Is someone doing that
it's
now?
the one that I did it through 1990. It's done.
Okay.
But these are old obituaries then, that up through 1982. After Mrs. Prill died, Orville tried to keep the obituaries up to date. And then in 1982 is when he, felt like he had to give it up. There's an index lays on the top here that tells what's all these microfilms in here. And okay, newspapers, we just covered obituaries. There's, when they were here in microfilm, the Latter-day Saints in 1974, they did all these families. There's Bible records on microfilm, and the church histories then that are in the drawer over there. And there are some church membership rolls in here, and clubs and historical items, and then we get to, of course, newspapers. Newspapers started in 1847. Here's our very first roll, June the 12th, 1847 through July 13th, 1849.
Now, does the newspaper do this for you and bring it over here? I mean, film costs money, I know, from working at the bank, but, it does take some money to put this together. So how do you fund that?
I honestly can't tell you. Here's our last one. They've got a microfilm now up through, December 1998. Who paid for this roll? I don't know. There's 4 rolls per year now. They go quarterly.
Maybe the ledger puts that together.
I can't tell you.
And this is what I used when I came to research for South Pacific, and I knew it was in the early 60s. So I found the section that had that, and I knew it was in the summer, so I'd look in the summer months. And that's where I got caught up and stuck. This is like a treasure hunt.
And this goes through the next drawer down has Lockridge and Batavia newspapers. These ones that are numbered 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 those are the Latter-day Saints that have microfilm things here. And we didn't buy all the rolls, but this is what this index tells you. You know, what roll of Latter-day Saints microfilm is, you know, what all these numbers. There's some here in the top drawer even. Here we get up into the 50s and 60s and, well.
And this is obviously the viewer, I guess?
Yes.
It viewed out down on this white area.
Mm-hmm.
Now, when I came here, I didn't know how to use this at all. So you just
I guess
find
there are
what you're looking
instructions.
for.
Should we put one on?
Sure.
Well, let's just grab one so somebody can really see then what.
Okay.
We'll put it on the one that's we don't have to crank.
Okay. So this is an older version of that.
Well, this is a
Kind
reader
of.
printer. This one you can print out a copy.
Oh, okay, and I did
This-
that.
This you can see a bigger section of the page on it. This will be a
So-
much smaller
It just
section.
depends
Yeah,
on
so
what
if you want to print
to
something out, you'd
do.
want to use this machine.
Now this machine was purchased in December 95. I guess we moved in the new library in June 96, I think. And so see, it's going to be 4 years old.
You make this look easy, and it really is when you know what you're doing.
Okay, I'm going too fast for you. I threaded it through according to the diagram right here. We have this right here that moves it up and down on the page. This, if it isn't level, this one will make it all level. And this makes it forward and reverse. If it isn't in focus, there's several little things down here. That's the one that brings it in closer. If you want to
Enlarge it.
enlarge it, or then we'll shrink it back down a little bit.
So what are we looking at? This is the year,
Well, we're in a May 49.
May 11th.
Pronounced dead, he's alive. Well, that looks like an interesting story.
See, you can just get in there and get so caught up in
As a 4-year-old little boy, he's in critical condition. He was struck by an auto as he darted in the street. So what's our
the headlines.
Berliners await? Okay.
May 11th, 1949. Is there a local
So now,
JC's?
JC's new officers there. Frosty Yulin, the local photographer, is going to be the new president.
who was that?
Frosty Yulin. I remember
Oh my
him.
goodness. Oh yes, he took my graduation picture.
It is so interesting to get in here and just look
Oh,
at
but
this.
then the trouble is you get carried away with grocery store ads. What do we got
Oh,
here
I know.
now?
Benner Foods. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And they were
remember
down
that.
where TSC is. Is that where Benner's were?
Oh my goodness, TSC. I think it's, yes. I think so.
Now,
and then
who
prices.
Yeah. Oh yeah, that's interesting.
Now you
59
can't buy 10 pounds. It's either 4 or 8 pounds of sugar, right?
I guess we're not cooking, baking as much.
Who
Letter-
purchased this machine? Did the society purchase that? The library purchase this?
The library.
Okay.
And
So
I'm
they
not.
maintain these machines.
Yes, this one has been very. We haven't had hardly any problems with this one. The one prior to this, that was a reader printer, gave them lots of problems. And
So you get in here and you're looking for something specific. You know, someone in your family died a certain year. You go to that section, find it. You can make copies and print it off.
I don't know. Maybe
But you guess you have to kind of know what date you're looking for, and
Oh,
don't you? I mean,
yes, at least within the week. You'd hate to sit here and just turn the reel forever. I suppose I should maybe print something to show you, what it comes out like. I was hoping to find something local. Well, okay,
Young America shop,
there we got the Young
sleepwear.
America shop. Let's just see here's brown shoes now.
And this is 1949. Wow.
1949. I'll
That
show
looks
you
like
what,
something we wear today.
Now,
I say maybe we could take it over and then want to reuse the ad.
The girls at the front desk will come and, you know, print it off for you. But see, sometimes you wonder, oh, what's all this stripes across here? That's the microfilm that's got scratched from use.
I'd say that's a pretty good copy, though.
Yes.
It's pretty clear.
Not too bad.
I know we saw an old ad for Iowa State Bank years ago, and it was directed towards the women that they could have their own checking account. It was really funny.
Oh, I could see.
I sent since Kent Whitney's sponsoring us, I sent him several old ads that had been in the paper. I just saw them and I just thought, oh, for 50 cents, I'm going to just send them to Kent.
And after 5 generations in Fairfield.
Absolutely.
I'm sure.
So, do you have to keep track of your copies here? How does this work? You have to tell the front desk, or what?
The front desk will come and, if you would go to the front desk and they'd print them for you.
Okay.
I see. So you're not supposed to just sit down and start printing yourself.
Right. Well, you can read it, but then you get it all set what you want right here in this area, like right here, and then they'll run them off for you.
I see.
And
Well, this is wonderful. I hope that there are some people in our community that didn't know about this that maybe will have the interest to come up here and look through here. It's really interesting, even if you're not doing a special project.
get carried away reading old ads.
Oh, it is. When I was a teenager, I really loved looking through that.
One of the things I guess we didn't get into at all, we were sitting in front of the books. We've collected all the obituaries since 1973, and they're in 5 bound books over there. You notice the 5 orange books on the bottom shelf. And you'll also notice the old scrapbooks there from our Genealogy Society. When we started, we kept big scrapbooks for the first 12 years. And Jim Rubis says that these kids that come in to do projects, they find their own birth now in those old scrapbooks, and that's a thrill. I suppose it would be. Find it written up in this little notice.
That's interesting. Now, what will we find at the courthouse?
At the courthouse, in the clerk of court's office, is where you find your probates, wills, divorces, naturalizations, and then over in the recorder's office, you get your births, deaths, and marriages, and land records. I do not research land records.
That sounds like a whole nother project.
It's very time consuming, I'm sure. I'm sure that there's some unanswered questions that you asked me that I didn't answer when we were talking earlier. Is there something, Connie?
I guess I just want to make sure that I'm understanding right about this 65-year privacy thing. So if I have somebody that's maybe born and died in an infancy in the last 65 years, is there any way to find out that information? I mean,
the courthouse records are open to the public.
So you can go get that information.
You can go get them, and you can get either certified. No, they make certified copies only of like your parents' marriage. That's $10. I know. Yeah.
Okay.
And otherwise, over in the probate records, they're 25 cents a copy over there, in that corner.
Okay. Well, shall we stop here and meet you over at the courthouse?
Sure.
Okay.
We've just opened the door of the courthouse and come upstairs to look at another door to our past. And you're showing us some things that we find here and we've got from the clerk of court's office.
Yes. I guess I'll start out by telling you this book was at the library, and they also have a copy here. This is the index to the probates and the wills and the naturalizations and guardianships.
Through 1961.
1961. And I brought out box number 88, which was the 4th row down from the ceiling in the clerk's office.
From the ceiling? That's like
Yes.
pretty tall up there.
This is a tall ceiling. I went up probably 4 steps on the step ladder, and if you want to get the top row, it's like go up 6 steps on a 9-foot step ladder. But it's, and then they contain many. This one now, the one I looked up last week, see, is one of the fatter ones. In other words, it's more detailed.
And this is a project that you were researching
I was
last
researching
week.
for a man in Springfield, Virginia, and I felt it was very interesting, so I thought, well, his first name was Samuel. I won't go into what the man's last name was, but he does still have relatives living here in this county. And the first thing you find is, let's back up a little bit. We looked up his will.
This is
And
really
this is a will book. This happens to be Will Book D, and I'm researching in the year 1906. And I read his will, and he had a total of 15 children.
15 children.
5 by his first
I was
wife,
going to say, how many wives?
and then 10 by the 10 by the second. And in his will, the first 5 children were just left $1 apiece, and the others were to get their share after the youngest one reached 21. The youngest one at the time of his death was 5, and so,
I guess he didn't like the first ones as well, did he?
well, evidently, or he felt they were more adult, and most of them were married by the time he had died.
So he thought they could take care of themselves.
I guess.
So this gives a full record of people's wills in here, or what? I mean,
Yes, they start with book. They're typed. These have been typed out.
The last will and testament.
And this book has,
Some are long and some are very
oh yes,
short.
just because look at this one, it's quite long.
I was going to say, I mean, I have a
Here's
very
an-
simple will, but I know it's more than one paragraph.
And then see
Over
here, he's made an amendment
Codicil?
to it. So see here, this is still the same man. This isn't the one I researched, but you know they get pretty
Now-
involved.
Does this come after the person has died, or
Yes.
it's not? As soon
can't-
as you make a will, it's not
No,
here.
it's not there. This
So
is
after the person passes away and the will is
probated.
taken care of
In
and
court.
goes through its
Then it's
regular course, then it's recorded here?
Yes.
Okay.
And anyone can come and look at
Yes.
these, check them out,
Yes.
look at them.
Look at them. You can spend 25 cents for a copy of it, for a page. So then, let's get into this nice fat packet.
Well, there again, do you have? Oh, I guess you have to know the name because these are alphabetical.
They aren't alphabetical. They're chronological. You have to know your year and the month and the day. And that's
Okay.
what this index will tell you.
Oh, okay.
What book, you can see this,
Well, I
we
guess
brought out book D then.
Okay, I guess it doesn't make sense that it would be alphabetical.
This
'cause
seems like
is
a
bound
class
book.
that should be taught at school.
Oh,
Well, I'm feeling pretty ignorant here, as you can probably tell by the questions I'm asking.
I'm trying to find the beginning of this
There.
thing. Here we are. Okay. Now, the first thing
This is all in one family, right here.
This is all this man, Samuel's. Here's the list now of all his children. This is called the inventory. And it lists, see, his oldest son was 52 and his youngest, this is a grandson, this one was 5. So he has quite a time span. Here's a list of all the property left with a widow. See, she got plows and rake and harnesses and oats and rye and wheat and corn and harrows and a cider mill.
I'm sure there's a story behind this, even more than what we're just seeing.
Oh,
Seeing
it's
how
a
the
life-
different
a
ages
life
of the
story.
children.
Now, this is what everybody wants to know. Who are all these children, you know, and where did they all live and their age? Then the next page tells he had $83.94 worth of cash on hand, and he didn't have any notes due him. But oh, he owed money. This is a lot of the claims against the estate, little pieces of paper. And here's the one that I found so interesting. He owed doctor bills.
Well, with 15 kids, I'm sure.
But from 1869 to 1906,
oh my goodness.
Was this all one doctor?
Yes.
I see a lot of $2, $2.50,
Most of them, $2.50.
visit to the...
I have never run into anything like this before.
So this bill was never paid?
$433.
Never paid. That's interesting.
Well, then, here's another interesting little thing, that these are the kind that people always want a copy of. Here he owed, I suppose, the general store. Bananas, dress goods, thread, shoes, overalls, seed potatoes, oranges, slippers, coffee, underwear.
Underwear?
Yeah, underwear. Armbands.
What's this? Dimity.
Dimity, that's a type of cloth.
So underwear, 50 armbands, and 10 hose supporters, 70 cents.
The underwear was 50 cents. Here, oranges a dime, wonder, baking powder 50 cents.
A parasol.
Well, how much was it? $1.15. 2 collars. This would be, I suppose, the stiff collars for men.
So you get a look into the lives of how they lived.
And let's see. Okay, now here he owes 6 months after date. We promised to pay the Batavia Savings Bank $150, 8% back in 1906.
So are family members still
8%
liable?
interest? I'd say that's pretty high for back then.
Are they still liable for any of these bills? Probably the businesses don't exist anymore, so...
These are the people that turned in claims against the estate, just like nowadays. Claims get, within 4 months you can put in a claim to an estate?
I have no clue.
Boy, do we need to learn a lot.
Who's that show on? I'm not sure. Maybe we need to get an attorney in here.
But then the other thing that I wanted to show, and maybe he'll end up getting a close-up of this. I brought naturalization records up from the basement. And the early ones here were...
This looks like it came over on a boat.
This happens to be what you call first papers, the naturalization record. And we're looking at 1872.
You know what? This one,
flip it up.
This one is from Sweden, and a Carlson, Andrew Peter Carlson. I think that could be related to my grandfather.
Maybe a lot of Carlsons, though, huh?
Yes.
But you notice it just says that he denounces his allegiance to the King of Sweden. It does not tell where in Sweden he came from. You get his signature. And
I love their writing back then. It was a real
all had
art.
a swirl to it, didn't
Wonderful
it?
art.
But see, there was a naturalization project, could be one in itself. See, they took out first papers, and then they could carry that up to like 5 years and then turn it in for a full naturalization record.
Where did they do that at? Where they settled? Or do they do that
Sometimes-
in New York City when they came over on a boat, or where?
Yes, you could take out the papers in New York, or if you came down through Canada, you could get them
Wherever you entered the country at.
Yes, if you decided you wanted to be a citizen. Not everyone became a citizen. Some of them were aliens their entire life, I think. And this is a much later one, but it again has a nice stain on it. But now, all right, here's Vandervoorde.
Actually, it's Julius Vandervoorde.
And he was 21, and this was in 19...
Is this the Julius? That's not the Julius
I'm
Vandervoorde
sure
we
it's
know.
a relative, 1890,
He was born in March 1890,
Belgium.
He's not that old.
Belgium.
so was Julius's father Julius.
Or even grandfather or great-grandfather.
But it tells so much that he weighed
that would be-
145 pounds. He was only 5'4", light brown hair, eyes gray. He was born in Altair, Belgium. And the name of the boat and his foreign residence was, and he denounces his allegiance to the King of Belgium, and he arrived at New York on such and such a day in 1908.
So
I'm not an anarchist, and I am not a polygamist, nor a believer in the practice of polygamy.
Does he want a copy of that?
I think you need to come up here and look at this. And this book is,
Oh, it's got wet sometime.
So how is Declaration of Intention different than these naturalization papers? The same thing, only this is older, or?
I think it's the same thing. This is the form that they started using in 1907, and these other ones were a much older
Okay,
form.
so these were older than.
Things that you just didn't. Oh, there's lots of questions that I don't know the answer to.
I'm
Like
sure your phone will be ringing off the wall after hearing some of these stories.
Just say, are you in the phone book so people can
Afraid so.
contact you?
There's only one problem. None of your rural people can ever see this program unless they, find somebody in town to record it for them, huh?
Yes. Well, this has been very, very interesting. I think we've just touched the tip of the
Definitely.
iceberg on this whole genealogy and the research that you can do. And we're going to take a whole nother show and visit a cemetery, which will be another interesting tour and opening that door to our past.
And just to note of that, there's a part of Evergreen Cemetery that's not Evergreen Cemetery? Is that what it is?
The corner at Stone and B is Old City Cemetery. It's a completely separate cemetery.
And
It's
so that's
not
one
part of-
place we're going to go, correct?
Okay.
Okay.
So we will do that on our next visit. And again, we'd like to thank Kent and Rhonda Whitney from Whitney Monument and their 5 generations serving our community for sponsoring this show of opening doors in Fairfield, opening Fairfield doors. And thank you, Verda Baird, for your wonderful, your knowledge and your dedication to this project.
Well, we sure give some people something to think about today.
I think
Absolutely.
we have.
Absolutely. It's been really a lot of fun. And hats off to all the people in this society that have been doing all this work for all these years.
But remember, when you work on your own family, it's your do-it-your-own thing. It's do all you can before you ever begin to write to anyone and hire somebody, because it's more fun to find it yourself.
And like I said, it's a real treasure hunt.
Absolutely.
Thanks for having me, girls.
Thank you.